Hey, friends, it's your boy, homeless 12-year-old, back at you with another hot video. Today's topic, game journalists. Let's get right into it. Pizza rolls acquired. Epic victory royale. Alright, boys, let's get serious. Today's topic, your boy Jason Schreier, Mr. Eggman, Dr. Eggman, Dr. Evil. I've had this idea, this thought, this video in my mind for like about a week now. Thinking about, Diablo Immortal. I know we already talked about it 3 times. Thinking about Diablo Immortal and his response to Red Shirt number 2. It was a little bit not good, right? A little bit not ideal. He basically said he was just a petulant child, and the rest of the gaming community who is upset with Diablo Immortal is toxic, even though he said this. And I decided to finally make this because of Yongyea's interview with Jason Schreier. And I had a lot of thoughts about what this video was going to be. It was going to be like either just on him, it was going to be like all of game journalism, saying like what problems I have with it. And then I watched the interview and I decided I was just going to use that because it talks a lot about the ideas I had and the problems I had with what he's been saying on Twitter and shit, and how he's been, I don't know, kind of like a cuck a little bit. That's my pizza rolls, hold on. So I decided to write down some notes, watch some videos, watch some interviews like through his Twitter, see what people have to say about this guy. Because generally, what he's been saying, just to me, has left a pretty awful opinion of the guy to me. Just from like, his tweets and shit. And I've been looking on Reddit and on Twitter, and of course his fan base kind of just on Twitter. But on Reddit, a lot of people share the same opinion on me, especially the same opinion as me, especially on the Diablo subreddit, of course. But yeah, so I watched this hour-and-a-half interview. Never again. A lot of what he was saying was like, what's actually wrong with the gaming industry is like angry communities and devs getting burnt out. I don't argue that devs don't get burnt out, especially from the awful criticism they get, but I really think it's a problem with the publishers making these awful decisions like fucking microtransactions in every game, even single player ones, which makes no sense. It should be earned rewards from the game, not bought. But I think it's a lot to do with the publishers and not the actual fan base, because the fan base is getting angry over what the publishers are doing, not what nothing. They're just not getting angry over nothing is what I'm trying to say. However, it's the publisher's fault that they're making these decisions. Battlefront 2 could have been a good game. EA fucked it up. You know what I'm saying? Sense of pride and accomplishment. Alright. Now, you can't get angry at people getting angry at Blizzard for bastardizing their only what am I saying? You can't get mad at people from. You can't get mad at the people getting mad at Blizzard because Blizzard's bastardizing their favorite franchise. I mean, Jason, you said it yourself. Roll clip. Alright, I'm gonna eat my pizza rolls and I'll come back after.
I can't believe they turned Command and Conquer into a mobile game. Like, that bummed me out. That they feel like they're designed for investors, but I mean, that is like that is a capitalism problem. That is a publicly traded company problem where these executives at the top are making many millions of dollars in order to make this stuff.
I'm back from eating those pizza rolls. It's also like 3 days later. Don't worry, I'm not wearing the same clothes. I'm not Asmongold. Okay, so we've seen the part where he's talking about, I've already lost my train of thought. Hold on. So we've seen him talking about, what he thinks is the problem with it, which he said earlier was, people getting angry at developers. It was the backlash they're receiving. It was burnout. It was this and that. It was CEOs receiving too much money. I don't argue that. They definitely do get a lot of money, and maybe that should be spread to the developers who are working on the game. However, he also says this.
Angry because Blizzard made a phone game that is clearly meant to make money in China. That also seems like just, I can't understand it, because not every game that Blizzard makes is going to be for me. I can't believe they turned Command and Conquer into a mobile game. Like, that bummed me out. that they feel like they're designed for investors. But I mean, that is like.
Now, he says, I can't understand why people are getting mad at Blizzard for making a mobile game when he just said he's angry at people from EA for making Command and Conquer into a mobile game. So that scene, this is where I started having a problem with Jason, because he starts backtracking. A lot of what he's saying doesn't start to really make a whole lot of sense, because he later on he keeps going back to this, capitalistic problems within publishing companies or development companies, or whatever vernacular you want to use to describe whatever is making the game and the decisions within the game. Yet he also just can't be bothered to apply his own feelings from the things he has problems with to other people. He's not being empathetic enough to understand the people's problems with Diablo Immortal. And he's like, oh, people are getting angry, spamming the forums every day, 4 hours a day.
Spend 4 hours a day in the comments on YouTube and Reddit, or social media, screaming at developers and just getting upset about every new controversy week after week.
And it's obviously a straw man. He's being hyperbolic to the maximum, which just makes his argument seem even I just can't even respect it any less than I do, because it just doesn't make any sense. Because he even himself stated that, they made Command & Conquer into a mobile game that bummed him out. And then he says they made Diablo Immortal a mobile game, he can't understand why people are angry. It doesn't make any sense.
Here's the thing, consumers, you have so much knowledge on, insider knowledge on what goes on and why things work the way they do. Consumers don't have that. And, and...
Well, they could. I think one of the reasons that some people don't have it is because they don't want to learn. And
no, they do.
Frank,
but
I think
but game companies can communicate better. I think it's just that there's such a disparity in communication, and it's maddening. 100%.
No, I'm totally with you there. I mean, I think games, PR, and marketing teams and the way that they communicate with people is just infuriating. I've railed against all sorts of companies for their terrible communication in various ways, but there is a level of knowledge out there that I think your average
people want to be able to talk to developers and know what's going on. Just talk to them, forehead. They don't communicate. Oh yeah, you're right. That makes sense. Now, what is this whimsical Ty Lopez knowledge he's talking about? Like, I don't know. Like, none of us here are, like, fucking writers for Kotaku. We don't have these kind of fucking context Jason does. I don't know what he's trying to prove here, what he's trying to say. It doesn't really make sense to me. Now, for brevity's... God damn it. Now, for brevity's sake, I'm gonna keep it to a few more clips. I wanted to make this video, like, a little bit longer, but I decided not to. I just been spending too much time on this, like, foregoing even more than I should have. It's been like 2 weeks of me thinking about this and actually doing it. But I have one more clip I wanted to show you. It kind of ties into what I was saying earlier about him saying it's all about this anger in the community and this stuff, even though we have reasons to be angry because of these shitty ass fucking dev teams and publishers. Well, maybe not the dev teams. Maybe it's just the CEOs putting in the stuff or deciding the thing. I don't know. But anyway, the thing he says at the end of this clip just got me so fucking hard in my sides that they're out in orbit around around Pluto. That's how far they are in orbit.
And this rage that is just cultivated and instilled and is just so constantly ubiquitous in the video game industry. This rage, this anger, like, oh my God, this $60 game that happens to be one of the best Assassin's Creeds by far, like this incredible open world RPG that is like so well designed and full of interesting stuff and humongous. You can spend 200 hours playing this. It is. Would you agree with me when I say that the video game industry right now and the quality of video games is as high as it's ever been?
Fallout 76, Metal Gear Survive, Battlefield 2, BFA expansion, every sports game made by EA, Diablo Immortal, Destiny 2, Battlefront 5. It's not to say there haven't been good games released this year. There have been a lot. But it doesn't subtract from the fact there have been so many just piles of literal refuse that have been released by these companies. Literal dog shit. Especially Fallout 76. I didn't have high hopes for Fallout 76 when it got released. I got excited, and then I heard Jason Schreier say that it was going to be online, and then all my hopes dwindled. And I didn't pre-order the game like I would any other Fallout game. And you know what? I was right. It's a piece of shit. And it also surprised me that he defended the engine which they're making it upon. Now, he said that an engine isn't the problem. It's just an amalgamation of tools used by the developers. But if the engine wasn't the problem, then why does every Bethesda game have the same sort of glitches, the same bugs, and the same CTDs, crash to desktops? Why do they all have the same problems? And why do they all look the same? And why does, in the current year where games look amazing, does Fallout 76 look like a pile of dog shit from 2012 on the PS3? Like, it doesn't make sense. And there are also parts of the discussion where he says you can't judge games that aren't even out yet. You can't raise criticism of games that haven't been released yet because you haven't played it.
Fallout 76 just came out and it looks like garbage and it runs like jank. And it raises questions about Bethesda's technology. And I think those are legitimate questions. But to turn that into headlines, and this is not just you by any means, but to turn that into headlines that say Bethesda not changing its headline for engine for Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 is just such nonsense. Like, that is not a conversation that is worth having. The conversation that is worth having is like, why is this game so buggy? How did this happen? Should this be called early access? Should this be a $60 game right now? Should this be something that we spend our money on? We should play it and then talk about it and expose this. And I think it's super important for people like you to keep talking about it and exposing it and being like, look at these bugs. Look at this bug that literally deletes the beta off of your machine. That is absurd.
Yeah.
How could this ever be like how could this be shipped? How could this be shipped to people's computers? That is ridiculous, right? It's important to have those conversations, but when you start talking about like Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 and how Bethesda is deciding for this game that won't come out till 2024, they're deciding now that they're not going to change their tech. Like, that's, if you think about that for even 30 seconds, it's preposterous. Like, Elder Scrolls 6, it very well might have the same problems that other Bethesda games have, and I think there are many conversations to be had about like why those games have so many problems and what the root causes of those are. But to even talk about like what tech they have for Elder Scrolls 6 now is like preposterous. Like, they haven't even decided.
But
well, how can I not have criticism about Bethesda's games in the future when the games they're making now that they've said they've done so much work on in their in their conference? How are they gonna when they say they've done so much work on it to make it better, and it's still trash? How am I supposed to like believe that the games in the future are gonna be any better, like Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6? How do I know that when they say they're going to keep using the same engine, that there's not going to be same problems down the line? It's not going to look the same. It's not going to feel the same. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same drown-out, boring, dull thing that it will be from Bethesda. You know, Fallout New Vegas, even though it looked the same, even though it had bugs, even though it had crashes and glitches, it was still an amazing game. That was because Obsidian made it, and they made it with depth, you know, dialogue, story, gameplay. It was just better. It was just fun, especially the DLCs. So how can you trust Bethesda to do anything right by these new games that are coming out that actually look like they could be something? This is probably going to be the last clip I record for this video, mainly because it's already getting dark out. I'm kind of just done with this. But after rewatching some of the clips, the impression I'm getting is that Jason is taking every little criticism that people are having and every problem he has with the way they're criticizing the games and just microing on that, instead of taking a zoom out of why people are making these incredulous claims, as he'd probably say. And it's just because it's like a mountain of shit, and you have to climb to the mountain of shit to see the light, and most people don't want to climb that mountain of shit. They just look at the mountain and say, fuck it, I don't want to deal with the mountain of shit because the mountain of shit smells like shit. And that's basically what games are today from these AAA companies. They're mountains of shit. You have to climb to the top, and that way you can see out in the distance, and maybe there's a few rays of light past the shit pile of shitty games and shit code and shitty microtransactions. That's the problem right now. It's the mountain of shit. And this is where I'm going to end the video. Bye.